pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll with Atlantic.
Water towers can fly!
Echo Delta nominal.
Flight outside SC off. Say again, SC off.
Yikes. You bet.
Concur.
We don't need any more of these.
All right, y'all. You know the drill. It is a beautiful morning out on the Space Coast as we gaze our eyes. Gaze our eyes? I don't know if that makes sense. As we gaze upon a Falcon 9 that's on Slick 40 out at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. John Galloway for NASASpaceflight here. Let me know what y'all know what to do. It's already filled with 5x5s in chat. It's like y'all have seen a NASASpaceflight live stream before. Folks, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Got a late-breaking new T0 there, it looks like, so I'm going to update the clock in just a second. Just a couple minutes past the original launch time, but we'll get into that in just a second. Sounds like you can sound me, sounds like you can hear me just fine. You can see that sunrise behind the Falcon 9 over there, the 4 towers at Slick 40. So let's get into the stream with the rest of the people that are going to be joining me today. Up at the top of the list, Mr. Sawyer Rosenstein. Sawyer, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. First off, like being on the top of the list there, but I mean, it's a little bit early here, but then again, nothing like some RP1 and liquid oxygen to wake you up.
There you go, a nice Lox latte or whatever the joke is.
Yeah,
Sawyer's,
coffee with a side of Lox, or RP1 with the side.
RP1 with the side of Lox. Sawyer's going to be doing some Q&A for us this morning, so if you've got questions in chat, tag us at NASASpaceflight. We will go and get your questions from there. And also out in the field today, we have Mr. Thomas Berghardt. Thomas, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm out here in the field alongside Chris Gebhardt, who will be offering the live camera views for today's launch. And it's a gorgeous sunrise here at Cape Canaveral. Looking forward to today's mission to launch a GPS satellite up into orbit. And it's a beautiful day to go to space.
It is a beautiful day to go to space indeed. I love it. So folks, if you're just joining us, like we said, it's a Falcon 9. It's got the GPS-III-SV06 mission. It has almost as many hyphens as it has Roman numeral 3s in it. Well, I guess it only has one Roman numeral 3, and that's 3 lines, but whatever. Who's going to tell us about the mission today? Am I flipping a coin here? I know you both know about it, but who wants it?
I think the guy who wrote the launch article should say it.
Well, there you go. Who wrote the launch article?
That would be
Sawyer.
me.
Okay, Sawyer, go.
All right. So this mission, as you mentioned, is GPS-III-SV, standing for Space Vehicle 06. This is the 6th, as you can imagine, in the current Block 3 version of Global Positioning System satellites for the United States, but can also be used by other countries as well, which is part of these new satellites. So this mission will send the satellite into a medium Earth orbit, and that will bring the total number of GPS satellites in the current constellation that was launched by the US to 32 total satellites. So this satellite, with its upgraded Block 3, will allow for more types of signals and communications to be made through the ground, because GPS for your cell phones and location and all of that kind of stuff, and your actual physical GPS devices that you think of. It's also used a lot of times for clocks and timing, and that's how you get synchronized clocks and atomic clocks across the United States and across the globe. The GPS network is also used highly in the military, of course, and this one in particular also has signals for aviation safety services. They call it the safety of life signal. So basically to help in the event of emergencies or issues that arise with airplanes. So that is the basics of this mission that will again be launching on this Falcon 9 into medium Earth orbit at an altitude of about 28,000 kilometers.
Yeah, this is
Excellent.
this is the 6th vehicle in that Block 3 launching of the first 10 that are planned to launch. And all but one of them launched on Falcon 9s. One of them launched on the last flight of the Delta IV medium rocket by ULA back in 2019. And then the first one actually launched on an expendable Falcon 9, but since then they have refine their trajectory and things like that to allow for drone ship recoveries, and that's what we expect today. Today's first stage, booster 1077, launching for the second time. The first flight was Crew 5 last year. We'll be landing on A Shortfall of Gravitas after launch. And headed to, and actually it'll be headed to technically to a MEO transfer, but there's a slight bit of maneuvering that the satellite will have to do after Falcon 9 does its job, but it gets most of the way there. And like Hustler says, it'll end up in a medium Earth orbit used for GPS satellites.
Which, as a update, because I don't drink coffee, I'm a little tired, is 20,000, not 28,000.
There you go.
All right, I've got the new T0 ready to go, so show me 7:24 a.m. on the clock. Oh, it doesn't actually work that way. It's T-minus 45 minutes. I should have known that.
You can update it, you're good.
The clock changed, so the new T0 is set in our system with the countdown in the upper left-hand corner. So sorry about that. I was hoping we could, like, what's that game? Family Jeopardy? What's
Family Feud?
Family Feud, yeah, whatever it is. That's different, though. So let's see if we can't grab some questions. Sawyer, do we have some questions queued up here?
I am getting some set up for us, so...
Well, there's one we can start with.
Yeah, I just dropped that one in there. Princess Jules asking, will we see a jellyfish effect today?
Ah, yes.
That is a very good question. So the local sunrise today is 7:15 a.m. Eastern Time, which is now 9 minutes ahead of the scheduled launch. And unfortunately, that doesn't really lend itself to what you usually think of as a jellyfish, because the sun will already be lighting the ground here at Cape Canaveral. You might get a little bit more lighting on the exhaust plume than you would for like a middle of the day launch or something like that. But I wouldn't expect something necessarily on the Falcon Heavy level that we saw just a couple days ago. So you might get a little bit cool lighting. It's definitely going to be a cool sunrise. I mean, you can see on your screen now, the sky behind the rocket is super orange right now. It's like SLS is launching again or something. But so not a full blown jellyfish necessarily, but we could get some cool lighting effects as it launches again, just 9 minutes after sunrise today.
All right. Let's see here. What are the 4 towers for? Seriously? We did a whole video for about that. Yeah. You know something? Going forward, every time somebody asks that, I'm just going to roll the full-length video, and we're not doing anything else until the video's done playing. How long is that video? Like 20 minutes or something?
Yeah, we got room for that, don't we?
Yeah, we'll just put that in.
If you started at the 20-minute event, it'll be done right for liftoff.
We could see if we get the licenses to Freebird or Dark Side of the Moon or whatever, so we could put that in there as well. The 4 towers, lightning towers. They hold up wires that get struck by lightning instead of the rocket. For serious answer for anybody that doesn't actually know what the 4 towers are for. Long-running joke around here.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find the trajectory of a launch to know if we can see it from the North Carolina East Coast? Let's see. Virginia, give me just a second. Sawyer Thomas, talk about that real quick. I'll see if I can't put it on the screen.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it, sorry.
So essentially, they end up posting the recovery for these boosters, which helps a lot with that as well, so that we can kind of see where they have the water shut off so that boats don't get hit by the rocket landing in the event that something were to go wrong down the launch corridor. So this one in particular, though, will be climbing up to the northeast. It is at an inclination of 55 degrees when it gets into its final orbit. So as a result, that means that, yes, it will be going up the east coast, and in theory, you should be able to see it, weather pending, in North Carolina, and as it continues northeasterly.
Flight Club is processing the plot for me right now. I did not process the plot before I started the stream, but I'll have it in just a few seconds. Let's see here.
And that is another way. There are also websites and things like flightclub.io, which will help outline trajectories and things too.
Yeah, I've got it right here. Survey says...
There you go.
Trajectory. There we go. Y'all, this website is flightclub.io, and it lets you do your own visualization of the trajectories. And so, as you can see here, going up to the northeast this morning, this one's going to be hugging the east coast of the United States. If it's clear where you are, you should have a view of it exactly how the lighting works. Like Thomas was talking earlier, is going to determine whether or not you see it. But if you're looking at it from this direction, you can see the entire eastern part of the United States is going to have that rocket going right past it. The red line is actually where the first burn is. That's, or I guess not the first burn, the upper stage burn is. And so that engine should be lit and creating exhaust for that entire red line all the way up. What is that? That little thing is like a cape. Didn't Massachusetts have a cape or something like that? I think that's Boston, that little curly Q, if I'm not mistaken. So all the way up the East Coast, you may have a chance of seeing it. Are you going to see the exhaust plume? Are you just going to see a little dot going in the sky? It's worth looking if it's not too freezing outside. To hop outside and see if you can see the launch today, because it is going right up the East Coast. That's really cool that you can actually go to this website and zoom in and visualize the trajectories. It even shows like the drone ship landing area. This red zone down here is where the drone ship is. It shows the entry and landing burns and all that sort of stuff. So check out flightclub.io, and please don't crash Declan's website.
That's happened before.
Uh-huh.
Be nice. Everybody form an orderly queue and click refresh on the website one at a time, please. All right. Is this an RTLS launch this morning? Question from Nicholas Theus. How's that looking? Not RTLS. We just had the trajectory up, I guess.
Yeah, this is ship recovery. GPS satellites head to a medium Earth orbit. Like today's launch will technically be a transfer orbit, but it gets most of the way there. And that requires a bit more energy than the low Earth orbit missions like the transporter mission. And it doesn't have the excess power of a Falcon Heavy where the side boosters can come back and let the center core go way far downrange. So today's flight needs a drone ship recovery to get to that higher orbit.
Gotcha. And once again on Flight Club, you can see the long arc here. This is the sort of, I guess, not ballistic the entire way, but this is what the trajectory looks like when there's a drone ship. The drone ship's going to be right there in that little safety zone, that red zone. If it was a RTLS, you would see after the booster separates, it sort of flip back around and come back down that way. But when you got that arc going down to the ocean, that is a drone ship landing today.
Yep, and the autonomous drone ship, as mentioned, that will be supporting this mission is A Shortfall of Gravitas, and that is about 630-ish kilometers downrange.
All right. You can actually see those the entry burn if you're on the coast of North Carolina. That drone ship is stationed off the coast of North Carolina. So if you're over there near the Atlantic, you should be able to see a dot of light falling out of the sky when that entry burn happens. I can see it sometimes from here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm hundreds of miles inland. So same thing when we get up another T-minus 38 minutes here. If it's not too freezing outside, you might step outside, see if you got some clear skies, because you may be able to see this morning. All right, moving right along. Well, Virginia Dunham, that one's for you as well. We just talked about how you can find the trajectory of the launch to know if you can see it from the North Carolina East Coast. I think you got a good chance this morning of seeing something if you're out there in North Carolina on the coast. Let's see. Here's one that I actually don't know. How high is a medium Earth orbit compared to a low Earth orbit? I've heard like
Sure.
MEO before, but do we already answer that in the article?
Well, we don't really necessarily compare it to low Earth orbit specifically, but again, the official altitude for this satellite will be 20,180 kilometers in altitude. So medium Earth orbit typically ranges between 2,000 and 35,000 kilometers or so, which is about, I think it's about 1,500 to 22,000-ish miles, roughly, for the conversion there. Low Earth orbit is obviously considered a lot lower than that, so all the Starlink satellites are low Earth orbit, the International Space Station, Hubble Space Telescope, all of those are technically considered low Earth orbit as well. So basically anywhere below 2,000 kilometers until it would re-enter, essentially.
Until it would re-enter, nice. All right.
Yeah,
Keep
and
force-
for just another reference too, we mentioned that there are other countries that use the GPS system. There are also other countries have their own versions of GPS, their own satellite navigation constellations, and
Right.
they're all in kind of the same orbit. Like they're all in different medium Earth orbits that are just offset by a couple thousand or so kilometers altitude. The big notable ones: Russia has GLONASS, GLONASS. China has Beidou, and the and then Europe has Galileo. Those are the four biggest ones. There's also the Indian one, which is IRNSS, which is only a regional one. It doesn't have global coverage. It only covers India and its surrounding region. And then is Japan's global?
My understanding is yes, the Quasi-Zenith Satellite System,
Yeah,
QZSS.
yeah, is also a global coverage. So there's actually 5 global ones then, in addition to the regional Indian one. And most of you, and this is actually fun. So if you go, like, if you have an iPhone, for example, you can Google your iPhone like model number, and it'll tell you which satellite navigation constellations your phone is equipped to handle. The newest ones handle most, if not all of them, and will receive signals from all of them to give you the most accurate possible GPS signal. And if you have an Android, I believe there are even apps you can download to tell you like which satellites you're currently hearing from, which is pretty cool.
Nice. I didn't know that. I didn't know you could, like, I've seen like the count, right, where it's like tracking 9 GPS satellites and that sort of thing, but I haven't ever seen which network it's talking to. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Gonna have to go download an app. Hey, real quick, y'all, some super chats and stuff like that have been coming in. So let me say thank you to some people. Starting off with White Wizard. White Wizard actually joined the red team hours before the stream actually started. So might not even be here anymore, but White Wizard, thank you so much for joining the membership program. We've got Dave Cowdrey, who joined the Capcom program, or joined the membership program at the Capcom level there. Dave, thank you so much for the support. We've got Alex Plant, who is a pad rat. Thank you, Alex, for joining the membership program. Again, if you don't know the membership program, we've got all sorts of behind-the-scenes stuff, early access to some videos and photos and stuff like that we put out. We've got a Discord that you can join and chat at certain levels. If you're into that sort of thing, the membership program is a great way to keep up with what we're doing, get behind-the-scenes access, and spend a lot of time talking in a Discord server if that's your thing. See here, we've got Maha with the first super chat of the stream. It looks like €5 and no message, but we appreciate you there, Maha. Thank you so much for the support. Over the course of the stream, you might also see some merch things hopping up in the upper right-hand corner. New feature on the store: if you buy a bit of merch, like a t-shirt or metal print or whatever that sort of thing is that you're looking at, it'll actually pop up as a little notifier in the upper right-hand corner. It doesn't say your name or anything like that, but it says that you ordered a metal print of such and such, and shows on the stream when that happens. Today, still relevant, we had the Falcon Heavy merch. Everybody loves the Falcon Heavy logo that we did, but we've also got this launch entry and landing design. Entry, not injury. Entry and landing design, showing the burns, the engines that are used for each phase of flight, and this matches just what we're doing today. We're going to have the launch go up from the pad. We're going to have the entry burn, the supersonic retro propulsion, helping protect the rocket as it comes back down in the thicker atmosphere, and then the landing burn. And you can see it's all 9 engines, and then 3 engines, and then 1 engine. So if you're over in the merch store and you buy something, you don't have to. You're welcome to watch the stream either way. Don't have to financially support us, but if you can and you want to get some merch, head on over to shop.nasaspaceflight.com, and when you check out, it may give you a little thanks in the upper right-hand corner. All right.
Yeah, big thank you to that. And I also want to jump in with a quick update. We have confirmed that the launch auto sequence has started. So propellant load is now underway with the Falcon 9 rocket. The first stage is going to be getting RP1 kerosene and liquid oxygen at this time. And the second stage will be getting its RP1 kerosene right now. Liquid oxygen will come later after the classic 20-minute event. But propellant loading now underway for an on-time liftoff at 7:24.
Good deal. We're marching towards T-minus 32 minutes here. That puts us about 12 minutes from the big visible venting when we get that T-minus 20-minute vent. But be on the lookout. Little haze, it's not haze, it's turbulence. Little turbulence in the air this morning. We can see the rocket waving a little bit. I just noticed it looks like we could make tequila out of this rocket. It seems to be growing out of an agave plant. Those are palm trees. They're not agave plants. It's thinner fronds, or whatever the right terminology is, right?
And I don't know if you can you can kind of see it. There's a little bit of a really low-lying fog around the ground. I guess it's more like a mist that's still like off. It looks really cool.
Yep, but it's beautiful out there this morning. This looks like it should be a poster for Florida visits or something like that, with the sun coming up and the palm trees in the foreground. It just
Yeah, I've got
screams
the camera
Florida
out,
to me.
but it's also a not a cloud in the sky, so should get some good visuals on the way up.
Nice. Oxyquila. Yeah, Adrian in the back channel says it's Oxyquila as opposed to Teslaquila, I guess. Anyways, y'all keep the questions coming. If you've got questions for us, tag us in chat and we'll see if we can go through them. Oh, here, wait. One more super chat here from Matt Large. Says Japan's QZSS GPS is local and uses an orbit with a crazy ground track. Anybody know what sort of orbit that would be? I know there's all sorts of wacky orbits like Molniya and things that sound like I should say bless you afterwards. Anybody know the crazy orbit that Japan's GPS system works in?
I personally don't, so I'll leave that to people who are in front of computers.
I'm trying to recall what. Oh, it's I believe the ground track takes it over Japan and then does a figure 8 around Australia. Essentially, is the quasi-zenith orbit.
Yeah. Interesting.
I imagine if it's sort of staying around it's not a continent. If it's staying around Japan, right, it's not floating all over the Earth. It's probably some sort of a geosynchronous orbit where it sort of traces figure 8s on the Earth. Not geostationary where it stays above one specific point, but geosynchronous where it might like trace a little path on the ground as it wobbles around its orbit. But quasi-zenith? I've never even heard of a quasi-zenith orbit.
Yeah.
Well, I
just
guess that kind of makes sense. If it's like oscillating, then it's not technically always exactly zenith, which maybe that's where the name comes from. So I'm completely speculating, but yeah.
I think it makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
anyways,
and while it is
Also
primarily
fun-
local to Japan, by the way, it is technically international in a way, and that it is meant to help enhance the US's system as well. So it can be used by multiple users on that one. So it's regional, but
Gotcha.
used globally.
gotcha.
Yeah, okay. Also, if you want to be really cool and you want to know what zenith means, so zenith is just the space term kind of for up in the space like reference frame. So if you want to be really cool and you instead of saying what's up, you just say what's zenith. That's what the cool space kids say.
Such a nerd. That's why we get along, though, Thomas. Oh, jeez. All right. How are we looking on? Let's grab some more questions. Sawyer, can you grab a question?
Sure. Kind of going off of that actually works out well, and I can answer this one. Zovi Sapphire asking, do the different GPS systems work together in any way, or are they all made to be independent? Now, originally it was kind of everyone for themselves, because not only are these GPS systems used for your phones and everything civilian, but a lot of them, including these, are used for military as well. And in fact, Space Vehicle 6, the one going up now, along with the other GPS-III satellites, do have specific things on board in an M band, essentially, that they use for military. But the other interesting thing about these GPS Block 3 satellites is that they have a new type of signal on board, and it's designed so that it can be used in conjunction with other networks. So the signal is called L1C and is meant so that any other participating satellites that also use the same signal can just be interchanged and talk with each other. As of right now, the only other one that currently has it is Galileo, which is Europe's, but Japan, as we were just talking about, and China are in the process of creating something that is similar. So as of now, certain satellites can. Here's another question that I can hand over to you, Thomas, for this one. How many times has this booster launched previously?
Yeah, this is a flight-proven booster, but it's only on its second flight, so it's relatively young as far as Falcon 9 boosters go. Its first flight was the Crew 5 mission last year, which was a Crew Dragon mission up to the ISS. In fact, it's the Crew Dragon that is currently still docked to the International Space Station, coming back in a couple months. That was the mission that launched the first Russian cosmonaut on board a Crew Dragon mission. So that was this booster's first flight, and this is its second flight today with the GPS satellite, and of course many missions ahead, assuming a successful recovery on A Shortfall of Gravitas today. And the booster number is booster 1077 for those keeping track.
It's only its second flight. What a thing to say.
Right, yeah. So I think this is the newest, like, as far as serial numbers go, this is the, like, most recently manufactured booster that's currently active, if that phrasing makes sense. Because I don't think 78 has flown anything yet.
I believe you're correct. I'm trying to pull up my list of boosters here. I'm sure someone
Yeah,
else
we've
has
all
their
got a
spreadsheet up.
spreadsheet for that, right?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, correct. 1077 is the highest number in the fleet at the moment, essentially.
Nice.
Hey,
The
look,
next.
a merch order popped up.
Ooh.
The engine shot, the remote engine shot of the Falcon Heavy with the 27 Merlins on the bottom of it. That image didn't exactly. I guess that's the metal print image that comes through in
Yeah.
that form factor, that aspect ratio. Huh.
Still gorgeous photo.
All right. Hey, real quick, Itamar Priel? I hope I pronounced your name correctly, but thank you for becoming a Capcom member over there. And then Maha, is that cake? I'm trying to figure out if that's coffee and
Coffee
cheese
and
or
cake.
coffee and
It's coffee and cake, it looks like.
coffee and cake. All right, waking us up this morning, I guess. Maha, thank you so much for the 2 additional euros there. We appreciate the support. Coming up on T-minus 25 minutes here, folks. If you're just joining us, it's a Falcon 9 over there, just on the other side of the palm trees which scream Florida. And it's at Slick 40 today. You can tell because there's 4 towers. That's actually how it got the name Slick 40. No, it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with that. I made that up. But we're standing by about 25 minutes right now before this launch. There was a little bit of a slip. It was scheduled for, what was the original time? 7:10, I think,
Yeah.
right around 7:10
Yep.
a.m. And it scooted back just a few minutes, and we are coming up on we're coming up on T-minus 24 minutes now. But if you've just joined us, we appreciate you hanging out. Hopefully we see a rocket launch this morning. Next thing we're going to look for is the T-minus 20-minute vent. It actually happens at like T-minus 20 minutes and seconds, like 20-something seconds. 20-something
22 seconds, I think.
22.
Yeah.
What is happening with my camera?
Oh, yeah. We got to
Adjusting
keep
for
adjusting
lighting.
the shutter here because the sunrise is coming up. So
Okay,
we're
here.
good now.
Look at this
that.
fantastic view. Y'all get the camera set real quick. And,
Yeah, I
this
think Chris has got it. You're good.
Okay, cool. This view does not show the rocket. It's actually going to emerge from the trees in the background there. But are we good? I think we're good. Okay, camera's good now. Whew.
Yeah, and a reminder, if you have questions, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight. That will bring it up in the special software that we've got running here so that we can read them and hopefully answer them on air.
There's a lot more questions coming through about can I see this or not? And I'm going to tell you this morning, if you're up the East Coast of the United States, it's probably worth stepping outside and giving it a look. Exactly how pronounced will the plume illumination, say that 10 times fast, the jellyfish effect be? The sky's going to be pretty bright. And so
Right.
it may be like a sort of diminished plume illumination. Wow, I cannot talk this morning. Plume illumination. But it may be worth stepping out to see if you what you can see from where you are. It shouldn't, hopefully not a big deal to step right outside and look at the eastern sky because this thing is hugging the east coast of the United States. And what else do you have to do this morning besides try to wake up? Let me see if I can't, yeah, here we go. I should be able to do that. Real quick, one more time. Here's what the trajectory looks like. Courtesy of flightclub.io, going right up the East Coast. So like we were saying, if you have the opportunity to step outside, you do have a good chance of seeing something. Although like Thomas said, it's probably not going to be the spectacular Falcon Heavy level plume effect. You might be able to see something going up the East Coast.
Yeah, regardless of the jellyfish effect or not, you should absolutely be able to see the launch this morning for sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Sawyer, let's keep the questions coming.
All right. Let's see. Here's one. We were just talking about the jellyfish and whether we might be able to see it or not. Iker Gamers asking what actually causes those jellyfishes in the twilight and sunrise launches.
Yeah,
And
so that effect comes down to the difference between the lighting on the ground and the lighting up once you get almost to space even. And so if it's dark on the ground, but the sun is about to rise there on the ground, or has just set on the ground, and the sunlight can still hit the air above where you're standing, above the launch site. Once the rocket climbs high enough, the exhaust gases coming out of the engines can be illuminated by that sunlight, and so it'll be against a seemingly dark sky, but the rocket exhaust gases still get lit up. So it happens best right before sunrise. So if you launch, it's in the prime time is like 20 minutes before sunrise, because then it's dark where the launch site is. But as the rocket takes off and flies towards the sun, flying eastward and flies higher, the sun will backlight from the point of view of the launch site, the exhaust gases, and it can also happen near right after sunset. It's still flying away from the sun, but it still flies higher, so it can run into sunlight that way. And those exhaust gases can get illuminated that way as well.
we are a little under 30 seconds away from that T-minus 20-minute vent that we're going to be keeping an eye on as well. So while we're at it, the T-minus 20-minute vent is a sign in terms of where we are in fueling as well. That is typically done ahead of fueling of the liquid oxygen on the second stage, which essentially kind of clears out the lines and gets everything ready to go. So that smoky plume that we should be seeing any second will indicate that we are about 20 minutes and 22 seconds from liftoff. There it is. And that we will be starting the second stage LOX load.
All right. Is there much wind this morning, Thomas? That it's not like streaming out as much as it normally is. Is it coming at us, or is it just a slight breeze out there this morning?
Yeah, you'll see now it's actually starting to move off toward the left side of your view a little bit. There's a very, very slight, you know, wind, but it's barely even noticeable. It's a very calm morning this morning. And also, although it is early enough that the plume will be you can see it's still pretty noticeable. It's a pretty significant vent because of the humidity in the air.
Right.
But yeah, it's not super windy this morning, which is good.
All right. Is it cold out there this morning? Something about the low-lying fog makes me feel like it's chilly. How's the temperature?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, 5 Florida standards at least, but nothing too crazy, and we're staying comfortable out here.
Like requires a hoodie weather or something?
I've got an unzipped jacket for if we're
Oh,
going by the clothing scale.
I like that you
We're not quite
specify
at full closed jacket.
it's unzipped jacket. That is the Florida temperature this morning is unzipped
Yeah.
jacket.
I think it also depends whether you're asking a Florida native or a transplant as well. So.
Right, that's true also. I've only been here like 4 years now, so I'm not fully adjusted yet.
All right, let's see. I can get another question going while we're waiting here. Here's an interesting one. We talked a lot. This is coming out of Slick 40. Nicholas asking here, are there actually that many pads, or is the numbering like 40, 39 purely just a code?
Yeah, so in theory, and I guess the highest number is 46, which is the furthest south pad here at Cape Canaveral. There basically you can find at least 46 different pads. In fact, most of them you can find more because obviously there's 39A and B, for example, 37B. So some of the launch complexes have more than one pad technically. However, that does not mean there's 46 active launch pads. A lot of the pads are decommissioned. They're old pads that are no longer used. And so there's not that many active pads, but if you go through the Cape's history, you would find at least 46 pads that were either built and operated and then retired or something like that, or pads that were intended to be built and then canceled after they got the launch designation. Like I think 37B which is the Delta IV Heavy pad. The 37A was never even built for some reason. They built B first, and then they decided they didn't need the other. Yeah, so you can find that many launch pads in the history of Cape Canaveral, but that doesn't mean they all hosted launches or were even built. And it certainly doesn't mean that they are all active. The biggest active ones are, of course, Pad 40, where you see now with Falcon 9, and 39A. Those are the two SpaceX pads. You have Pad 41, which is the Atlas V and soon Vulcan pad. 39B is SLS. 37B is Delta IV Heavy. Those are the most active ones. And then 16 coming online with Relativity's Terran 1 And 46 is still active for Astra most recently, but also some other launchers.
They
Yeah,
did
those are
Minotaur
the
from
big active pads.
46.
Yeah, Minotaur can go from 46. 46 is like a multi-user pad, so a bunch of people can launch from there. Also, Pad 20 coming online in the next couple of years, at least for Firefly. That's a new one that will be coming as well.
Nice. I brought up the Google Maps, just the satellite
Yeah, there
imagery
you go.
there, and it's fun to like sort of click around and zoom in and look. You can see all the old launch pads in the area, and then some of them are actually repurposed, like the SpaceX LZs, where the RTLS
Right.
missions land is an old repurposed pad that used to be a launch pad, and now it's a landing pad, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
Good question. That was a good one.
Yes. Here's one from OnKill Severin, who was asking for the RTLS missions, which this one is not in particular, but for the RTLS missions, we hear sonic booms right before the landing. They're asking, where does it come from, or is it just reaching us at that time?
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's just when the boom is reaching the microphone that you're hearing. And based on where you watch a launch from, assuming if you're here in person, where you watch the launch from, the sonic booms will hit you at different points. If you are closer, it'll hit you when the booster appears higher in the sky. If you're farther away, they could even not hit you until well after they've landed. It purely depends on how far away you are from the point where the rockets fly.
Yep, and there is pretty much always going to be that sonic boom, even for these drone ship landings.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of it is based off of where you are and whether you're able to hear it for the landing portion.
Right, yeah, you won't hear the boom for a drone ship landing unless you're out on the recovery ships, for example. There you would absolutely hear it, but here on land, you only hear it when the booster comes back this way. Oh, also, I should correct something I said earlier. I said the highest number was 46. There is a pad 48 here at the Cape. It's another small, kind of clean slate pad up here, I think between 41 and 39A. It hasn't been used yet, but it technically exists. So the highest number is actually 48.
Yep, and there is technically room as well for additional pads to be built in some locations. I mean, originally for Launch Complex 39, the original plan was to have, I believe it was A, B, C, D, and E at least, and those would all be launching Saturn V's, which would have
Yeah.
been spectacular to see. So there were plans for all of those as well, and there has been discussion about a 39C potentially in the future. So it's not unheard of, and potentially I believe a
Yeah.
49 as well. So
Oh, right. Yeah. So I was going to say, if we're talking about planes, 49 is the designation given to the potential Starship launch complexes north of 39B. So hypothetically, obviously, I'm not speculating this will happen, but I'm just giving the explanation. If SpaceX changed their plans and like moved the launch complex to somewhere else here at the Cape or changed their plans otherwise, and the launch complex 49 pads as currently planned didn't come to fruition, that would explain why maybe that launch complex number would get skipped and there'd be an LC-50 that shows up and people go, where's 49? Well, it was a planned pad that then ended up didn't happen or something like that. So that's kind of how the numbering scheme can get messy sometimes. But currently, yes, Complex 49 would be north of 39B and host, I think, up to 2 Starship launch complexes.
love me some Cape Starship. Um, Spacecraft, by the way, just want to update, is on internal power at this point. Another question, which I did notice was that a helicopter that we saw in the background a few moments ago? And yes, there are a bunch of airborne assets that are used during launches, especially down at the Cape.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about, Thomas, which ones we have down there?
Yeah, and I missed that one specifically, so I don't know if I can confirm helicopter or not. There's also birds flying around, but very likely it was a helicopter. They have range security out there, and it varies how much security you need based on the mission. This is technically a national security payload because the GPS satellites are operated by the U.S. Space Force, so I'd imagine security is out in full force today. But you have the 45th Space Launch Delta 45, which includes just not only Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, but also the Patrick Space Force Base. And from Patrick is where you would normally send your range security helicopters to patrol the area, make sure that the hazard zones are clear and things like that. You'll also have security out around the range to be scanning for I guess you could say, wayward electronic signals, because some of the payloads, GPS satellites included, but especially some of the more complex reconnaissance satellites that launch from here, are very sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. And if there are radio frequencies and used too close to the rocket, those could cause damage. So you also have equipment out there, and I don't know if any of that is airborne, but some of that equipment also used to monitor those frequencies and things like that. So yeah, lots of security measures in play. I don't see the stereotypical KSC security in the form of alligators today, but I'm sure they're around as well.
Maybe they're a little too cold this morning.
Yeah, potentially.
Oh boy, yeah. So you will see those occasionally flying around, and again, the range is keeping track of multiple items. It is keeping track of weather. It is keeping
Mhm.
track of aircraft, making sure they stay out of the closed airspace. It is keeping track of boaters to make sure they stay out of closed water space. So there's a lot that goes into the range, and as you mentioned as well, even the electromagnetic frequencies and space weather as well.
Mhm.
So kind of going along those lines, Loopy mentioning that the WP-57 was out at sea for this flight as well. So for those who don't know, that is
Mhm.
one of NASA's planes that is used that has a camera on board and gives us a lot of great aerial footage a lot of the time. So that I believe is scheduled and heard was up for this particular mission.
Yeah, there's an online accessible schedule where NASA posts what all of their various science aircraft are up to at any given day, and they were up for. It was flying for the most recent the Falcon Heavy flight just a couple days ago, so it's in town, or it might have just flown all the way from Houston actually, but it's up again. It was supposed to be up again today, and it's also on the schedule for whenever that happens. Um, for Starship, the for Starship orbital flight, it's supposed to support that. I don't know if we talked about this because we saw it for hop test earlier before, um, and they were like needing to support the start like the high altitude Starship flight test, and then when the flight slipped a little bit, the plane became unavailable. So it's not like critical for those operations for launch ascent at least. They are also used for like capsule reentries, and I think it might be more important to have it for those tasks. But it's not necessarily needed for launches. But if it's available, it can provide some useful imagery and be useful for various things. And we expect to see it hopefully support the first Starship flight whenever that happens too.
Oh yes, we have seen the WP-57 flying around Starbase in the past as well. So it's no stranger to catching all the SpaceX stuff here, as we are now less than 10 minutes away from liftoff.
Didn't we see it doing an orbit around McGregor once?
Yeah, we did.
I think we did. Like they were practicing or dialing in equipment, like looking at Raptor engine flames or
Yeah.
something.
Yep.
Huh.
Calibrating sort of the heat sensitive instruments on there for the right exhaust conditions. Yep.
Yeah. For people that don't know, McGregor is where SpaceX tests the rocket engine. So they actually do static fires of the boosters in advance. They do testing of the Merlin engines in second stages, and they do testing of the Raptor engines, which are the engines that they are going to use for Starship. And we've got a 24/7 cameras out there. We've got 24/7 cameras out there, so you can watch the SpaceX engine tests live. We just crossed over, I think, yesterday, the 1,000th engine test in
Yep.
less than a year on McGregor Live. And people are like, oh, Starship, oh my gosh, a static fire at Starship. And McGregor's like, yeah, okay, I did 1,000 engine tests in less than a year. Go on, Starbase, do your thing. Anyways, a couple more questions here.
Sure. Here's a question from JB who is asking, what happens to all the second stages? Why don't we have video of their re-entries? And the second stages, as of now, are not reusable. They are one and done, so they will re-enter and burn up, but they're not just going to re-enter and burn up anywhere. China. These intentionally are given a location where they will burn up, where it is away from populations, and that way, if any pieces do survive, they will splash down. So this one in particular, if I recall, has a splashdown zone for the second stage just south of Cape Town, South Africa. So good question. So that's why we don't see it, is because they end up burning up and get destroyed and can't really see that. And at that point, they just want to show the success more than the burn. Here's one.
Real
Go
quick,
ahead.
Sawyer, I did get, I grabbed this. So courtesy of Flight Radar 24, you can actually see the track of that plane, the WB-57 we were talking about there, and it is loitering. It's like running a racetrack just off the coast of the Cape. The rocket is right in this area here, and it's going to be going up north. Remember that flight, or northeast? Remember that flight aware, or sorry, the oh my gosh, so many websites. The
Which
Flight
one? Flight Club?
Club that we looked at earlier.
Too many websites with flight in the name.
It is. Geez. It's going to be going up that way, and the WB-57 is orbiting, I guess, off the coast there. Maybe hoping to get some imagery of the launch. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a good thing we
Also-
don't have one in NASA Spaceflight.
Right, yeah, I was going to say, I just realized that applies to us too, doesn't it?
NASASpaceflight.
Yeah, exactly.
The flight.
But yeah, we can actually see
NASASpaceflightclubaware.io.
Oh,
Sorry,
jeez.
Thomas.
No, that's terrible. Yeah, we can actually see the WB-57 from here. We saw the contrail. Chris G picked it out, and I totally doubted him for a second, but when we pull up Flight Radar, he was 100% right, so my apologies. We can see it off to the east of the launch site, ready to go.
And just a heads up, in the mission timeline at this point, engine chill should be underway. And there's the confirmation. Engine chill is underway. So that's basically preparing the 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the first stage for the super hot flames that we'll have to be dealing with as it's flaming it down ahead of liftoff. Here's a convenient question. Is anyone keeping track of launches made versus launches rate needed to make the 100 SpaceX launches in a year? It's almost like we just did a recent video on our channel talking about what it takes to for SpaceX to try and achieve those 100 launches so far this year. So my suggestion is take a look at that on the NASA Space YouTube channel.
The space.
We're just going to redact our flight from our name now because there's too many websites with flight in it.
We should register that domain, NASASpaceflight.com.
Well, I guess it'd be NASA Space FUM, so we don't have to change all the initials, but yeah.
I got to keep the F for the acronym, yeah.
Coming up on 5 minutes here, y'all. It's T-minus 5 minutes from the launch of a Falcon 9 from the Cape. You can see out there the rocket is not venting. The rocket is frosty. Look at all the vapors coming off the entire side of the whole rocket. That's an indication that it's filled with cold liquid. Up and down the entire body of the rocket, that Florida humidity is condensing on the side of it, and the whole rocket just looks like it's frosty right now.
Right, which to interrupt along those lines, the first stage is completely filled with RP1, which again is a refined form of kerosene. Liquid oxygen, by the way, is the cooler liquid in there at negative 230-ish degrees Fahrenheit. So you get that frost on the outside, but RP1 load on stage 1 is complete.
All right, be looking out here. You can see there's the rocket, and then there's the 4 towers around the rocket, and then there's the little stick next to the rocket, right? The transporter erector, the TE. We should see that start to lean back a little bit. We've got it right on the side this morning, it looks like. So be on the lookout for that TE to start to retract. It's going to lean away from the rocket a little bit because it doesn't like being bathed in flames when the rocket takes off. It's going to try to get out of the way just a little bit before launch here, and then it will go back to, or it'll throw back even further. So let's see. See, now I'm psyching myself out, wondering if it's leaning back or I think it's leaning. Is it leaning?
Yeah, it just did a little bit, yep.
It moved a little bit, didn't it? Okay, I'm not crazy.
Yeah, and there are, in Florida at least, there are 2 steps with the retract. So normally you would see it retract a little bit and then a final retract about a minute or 2 before launch into its final launch position before it's completely thrown back at the very end at T0, which for reference, Vandenberg only does it once, but here in Florida they do it twice. The way that all the systems and everything are set up here.
Did it lean, like, now I'm like, oh, you should watch it. You should see it lean back a little bit. I think it might have leaned back slightly, but at a little bit of an angle away from us or towards us or something, huh?
It's interesting how we have to lean forward to see if it leaned back to look at the screens, just saying.
Yeah.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete. The first stage is now filled with the supercooled liquid oxygen.
All right, we're setting our filters for launch here, y'all. Let's see. When you see the camera change brightness, not that much. Okay, thank you. When you see the camera change brightness like that, we've got an ND filter that flips in front of it at different grades, like different amounts of tint, I guess you could say. And we'll go with something like this for launch. I'm also going to bring up our field microphone out there. Thomas, you ready to hop off and watch the launch here?
Yeah, sure thing. Christy will be on the tracking, so best of luck to him, and I'll see you on the other side.
All right, good deal.
Sounds good. And as we come into this final part of the count here, we are now at T-minus 2 minutes approximately until liftoff. A couple of things that will be coming up here. So we should get the go for launch in about T-minus 45 seconds. The engine starts will happen about 3 seconds before liftoff until it takes off at T0. Following that, we should get max Q, which is when the vehicle is experiencing the most maximum dynamic pressure on it, about 1 minute 12 seconds after, which is about when you'll hear us, because we like to be quiet so you can hear the rumble of the engines, with the first stage main engine cutoff coming about 2.5 minutes into flight. So just a rough timeline of what you can expect for the first half of liftoff here as Stage 2 LOX load is complete and gas closeout is underway, which you can see by that last and final vent there.
All right, look at that low-lying fog on the ground. It's almost like blocking the entire bottom of the shot behind the palm trees there. I'm glad it's that low. I'm glad we can see the rocket and it hasn't risen up the side of the rocket. But coming up on T-minus 1 minute, y'all, it's the Falcon 9 out at Cape Canaveral. It's GPS-III-SV06. If you're joining us, we appreciate you sharing this with us. We are going to listen in for the rumbles of the rocket coming up in about 50 seconds.
We should be getting the go for launch momentarily. Falcon 9 is in startup, so that means the onboard computers now have control of the vehicle and the final part of the count. And we have the go. We have the go for liftoff. So we're about 30 seconds away now at this point. Again, those clouds and vents are completely normal as we continue our countdown here. And as we mentioned, we are going to stand by for liftoff and then let you enjoy the rocket engine sounds before we join back in, as we are about 10 seconds away from liftoff.
Here we go.
There's ignition and liftoff of GPS-III Space Vehicle 6, improving GPS signals in the sky to help all of us back here on Earth, and it has cleared the tower. Gorgeous sunrise shots, and now enjoy the gorgeous launch audio.
And the rumble starts to fade there, y'all, as Falcon 9 pitches up the East Coast. Following the coast. Now's the time to look outside if you're up the East Coast, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., as far north as Massachusetts. This is a good time to go out there and look to see what you could see.
Yep, and we should be coming up on 3 events in quick succession in the next 20 seconds or so, which includes main engine cutoff. That will be followed by separation of the first and second stages a couple seconds after that. And then at T plus 2 minutes 45 seconds is when we should see the second stage ignite its engine in SES-1. So that should be coming up.
There. We're getting a little bit
beautiful.
of an effect. Look at the exhaust effect. We're getting some exhaust illumination there.
The baby jellyfish. There's Miko. Main engine cutoff. And next up will be separation. There you go, the first and second stages. And that will be followed up momentarily by the start up of the second stage engine.
Really curious. This is still Michael's auto track here. And you can see look, those are RCS thrusters on the booster.
Yes, that bottom glowing light of the two that you saw in that sort of cone was the first stage there. Unbelievable.
I think you could see, there it is. The RCS gas thrusters from the booster on occasion. Look at that.
That first stage booster proceeding towards the landing on the drone ship A Shortfall of Gravitas. And meanwhile, we should be coming up on fairing deployment momentarily on the second stage. That's the nose cone, basically, that protects the payload while it is inside the atmosphere. And once it leaves Earth's atmosphere, it's no longer needed, so it saves some weight.
That's amazing. You can still see the two. I mean, the booster and the upper stage are separate right now. Let's hop over this way. There's the fairing separation.
Beautiful.
Little white dots.
And in the meantime, there in the top right, you can see the Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC engine, performing its burn as well. That one should be burning for approximately 8 minutes and 8 seconds. 0808. As the first stage will now be preparing for its first of 2 burns ahead of landing. The first one comes about 6 minutes into flight, and that is called the entry burn. That will help slow itself down as it has entry, well, into the atmosphere.
Nice.
And yeah, as of right now, you can see those cold gas thrusters aiming it, and you see the grid fins also are deployed, which, besides making me hungry for waffles for breakfast, will help steer the vehicle once it re-enters the atmosphere as well.
If you have the handy-dandy launch entry and landing NSF t-shirt, you would know which engines are going to be used. It's a useful reference.
That is true. Shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Let's see. At this point, though, everything proceeding well as we are coming up on about 5 minutes into flight. You can see there on the screen just how fast both stages are still going. Stage 1 speed in the bottom left there, about 7,500 kilometers an hour. On the right side, you can see it's about 12,000. You can also see, though, the altitude is now going down on that first stage as it comes towards landing on the drone ship, which again is stationed just off of the coast of North Carolina, kind of near the North Carolina-South Carolina border.
Look at that. It's little puffy clouds down below it.
Oh, that doesn't get old, that view. I'm with Adrian. I want a Gridfin waffle iron now. Anyway.
Gridfin waffle iron.
It probably exists.
All right. We should be coming up on that entry burn in 30 seconds. So this one's cool in that burn, as it was put really well on the Falcon Heavy stream, it's slowing down fire with fire. So it will literally fly through its own exhaust plume on the way down there and slow itself down as it re-enters the atmosphere. And in case you're wondering, that's also part of the reason why we get soot on the boosters is RP1 is a carbon-based fuel, so as it flies through its own fire and through its own plume, like that, you get the soot on the booster and sometimes even on the camera as we watch this burn.
Still getting good video from the booster there. Sometimes it hiccups, but don't want to jinx it.
Look at that. Beautiful.
Yeah, we tried to see if we could see the entry burn from here, but I think it's just a little too light out. Maybe if it had launched at 710 instead, but oh well.
And there we go. We have the end of the first stage entry burn.
That was happening just off the coast of North Carolina there. So the left-hand side of the screen, the booster proceeding down to the drone ship that's off the coast in the Atlantic Ocean, and the second stage is continuing up the East Coast. I don't know if anybody was out looking, tell me if you were able to see it. It really comes down to how your clouds in the area were. That little bit of a delay might have made it a lot more difficult to actually see the second stage going up the coast. We got a little bit of illumination on the plume there, but not that perfect illumination when the sky is nice and dark and the plume is nice and lit up by the sun. That's easier to do when the sun is setting and it's getting darker as the rocket launches, as opposed to this morning, the sun is rising as the rocket launched, so the sky just gets brighter and brighter as it continues its way up the coast.
So we are about 15 seconds away now from SECO, which is second engine cutoff. That's the one on the right in space. And then we should have the first stage landing burn starting in about 35 seconds from now. So about 8.5 minutes into flight. And right now, based off of the speeds and altitudes we're looking at from the numbers on the right side of the screen, second stage is looking pretty good.
Look at the clouds.
Oh, wow.
Through the clouds. That's the...
Oh,
That was a landing
all
burn
right.
into
We
the
have
clouds there.
we have SECO on the right. There's the landing burn, it looks like, on the left.
The drone ship somewhere down there. It is.
There's the wiggle of the grid fins to help steer it.
Watch for the legs that come out.
There's leg deploy.
Show me a drone ship. It looks like it's good.
And touchdown.
There you go.
SpaceX has once again done it as B-1077 now completes its second mission, landing on a shortfall of Gravitas. That marks, fun
Booster
fact,
77 earns a -3.
yes. Fun fact, that marks the first time this year that a SpaceX landing has been on a drone ship. All the others have been RTLS.
And SpaceX also confirms a nominal orbit on stage 2.
Beautiful.
All right.
Just for reference, this second stage has one more burn ahead of it down the line that will happen before deploy, about an hour or so after liftoff.
An hour or so. That's a pretty good coast phase, a healthy coast phase this morning.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, so it'll do one more burn, then coast again for a short while, and about an hour and a half after liftoff is when the satellite should now be on its way.
All right.
Oh, the light now hitting that second stage was gorgeous. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, we don't always know SpaceX's exact plans, but it's possible we may lose the SpaceX stream here shortly, including the telemetry and stuff like that. But we'll see what we got.
Yeah, the GPS orbit and everything isn't classified or anything, so they could they post pictures of the GPS satellites too, so they'll probably be able to provide all the updates when they get the payload set and everything. But it'll be a long coast phase till we get there.
It's apparent. Apparently, the stream may be going all the way to deployment. Alex in our back channel saying that they may just keep this live the whole time. So,
wow.
Yep, stage 2 just about to cross off of the coast of North America there. The final parts up in Canada that it's going to pass over the Atlantic Ocean, going to be heading over Europe and the UK and Ireland, it looked like up there, but it's going to be bright on that side. Unlikely that you'll see anything in the sky because the sky will be bright. But look at these views off the second stage.
There is the satellite as well.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah,
Which, by the way, I don't know if we mentioned this at all, but there
Yeah.
is one more marine asset that's down there as well, and that is the recovery ship Doug that will be going to catch the fairings, at least attempt to grab those fairings and bring them back as well to reuse. So as much as we talk about the drone ship and the booster landing there, there is also another ship out at sea.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, real quick, I got to do it. You know what I got to do, right?
I so want to say it, but I'll let you say it.
There is Space Launch Complex 40 with no more space. The rocket is gone. You can see that TE has thrown all the way back. Now it's just Launch Complex 40. Having fulfilled its duty for the day, it has launched something to space. Maybe it's just Complex 40 now. I don't know. But you can see the empty launch pad means that we got to see a spectacular launch this morning. Great tracking as well. Thomas with the handheld.
Nope, that was Chris G
Chris G.
today.
Oh, that was Chris. You're right. Thank you. He's been so quiet. Chris G with the Chris Gebhardt was out there as well with the track with our crew operated camera, and then Michael operating a robotic camera. Michael's all the way over on the West Coast in California, operating the robotically controlled camera, the controlled robotically camera, whatever. It's still early. Tracking
Yeah, robotically
launch.
controlled would suggest a robot is actually controlling it, right?
That doesn't even make any sense. The remote-controlled robotic camera, I think, is what I was
There
looking
you go.
for.
Much better.
That's it. It's just Complex 40. You got it. But that is our,
This whole thing is just getting complex.
It is. This whole thing is complex.
Oh,
Thank you,
jeez.
Sawyer. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna mute your microphone.
Hey.
Anyways, we'll hang out for a little bit. Let's answer a couple more questions, but we do want to get the folks over at the Cape packed up so that they can go and get some breakfast. I'm curious.
Look at that venting on the second stage there.
Yeah. Look, I want to know who did this. What is this? The future utopia if NASA spaceflight starts their stream on time?
Wow.
The editor
But
gets
we're on time. We started early today.
we started right, or like maybe seconds after it said that we were going to go live. Reddit, we see you. I'm on Twitter. I see things that are happening over there. We're calling you out. We try to start right on time, but you want quality streams, don't you? Seriously. I saw that come across the feed. I had to show it real quick. Yes, we're going to solve world hunger. It will be a peaceful planet if only we were to start our streams on time. Flying cars even. There are flying cars in that image. All based on whether or not I hit go live at the right time. Seriously, Reddit. Seriously. I like this. Yeah, NASA spaceflight is never late, nor is it early. It starts the stream precisely when it means to. Thank you, Gandalf. Hey, a couple super chats that have aged here. Gary Molesky, thank you so much for the $20. That was right before the launch there. We appreciate the support. PNW what? Or PN what? Gifted 5 Red Team memberships, taking advantage of clicking on that button. If you're already a member, you can spread the love around. You can gift memberships to other people. We appreciate you helping the community out there, PN. Thank you so much. Matt Large did 449 curly L's saying alligator hoodie fund. Nice.
Got to keep the security warm.
It's the same as a security guard outfit, an alligator hoodie fund, right? Paul Winter, 10 curly L's. They're pounds. We appreciate the support there, Paul. We've got Maha, €5 saying liftoff. And Phasix, I think that says Phasix. What's the puffy bag that inflates and deflates on the RVAC engine? So, right? Yeah, this isn't an RVAC. The thing that we see on the screen right now is not a Raptor vacuum. That's a MVAC. That's a Merlin vacuum, right, Thomas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the bag that I'm assuming they're referring to is the foil-looking thing, right? I'm assuming that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not really a bag. It's just a layer of foil protection over all of the extra plumbing and things that are on the aft end, the bottom end of the stage, for basically thermal protection, and prevents things like ice particles and stuff from getting into the sensitive electronics and stuff that are back there. So it's not really a bag, but every time they fire RCS thrusters and things like that, or even as the engine gimbals a little bit, the bag will shake and move around a little bit. So it certainly looked that way. It's just a result of the rocket maneuvering.
Yep. That's a normal thing. We see it every launch. People are like, "Oh my gosh, what is it? It's the wind blowing on the engine in the studio or whatever." Like, as it turns out, there are forces acting on the second stage, and they may impact the flimsy foil, and that's just how space
it's literally just a thin. I don't know if it's aluminum foil, but very similar.
Yeah,
it's probably like a Kapton or Mylar or something like that. But
yeah.
But it's basically it turns out some of the fuels and igniters like TTEB is just like Floridians, very sensitive to temperature.
Oh my gosh. So anyways, Sanity Bites here says, is that a leak I see on the second stage? I'm going to guess you were referring to that little valve that has some ice that forms on it and then starts to vent before the engine goes, and then goes a little bit after the engine has finished its burn. Thomas, do we know exactly what that vent is?
Yeah, I think it's actually full gas thruster that just happens to be placed there. I don't know if it. Well, all right. Alex will correct me if that's like a LOX vent or something.
I thought it was a LOX vent.
Yeah. Now that I'm second guessing myself, yeah. All right. Alex tells me I'm wrong. It was a LOX vent, wasn't it? Because it wouldn't be firing continuously like that if it was an CS thing.
That's the engine bleed valve. Okay.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Okay. So that's a planned vent that allows basically throws LOX overboard while chilling the engine and things like that. I'm assuming it also fires even outside of like the normal engine chill, just to maintain pressure in the system and things like that. But it's nominal. It's not a leak. We've seen
Right.
that on all the flights before as well.
And because of the temperature in space, it basically comes out as solid oxygen, essentially, and looks like snow.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's what
So
Alex was just saying. There we go.
ICC is
Yeah.
actually oxygen. Yep.
While we hang out here, I'm going to read a couple more super chats, but we've got a treat from Michael really quickly. This is actually a replay of Michael's auto track. I'm just going to leave, I guess, the... Well, hang on. Let me see if I can do this a little bit more cleanly. Let me play back the auto track. Give me just 1 second. Yeah, that'll work. All right, here we go. So here's the replay of Michael's robotic auto tracking camera. This is actually installed there at the press site. And this is, Michael says this morning it was 100% computer controlled, identifying and tracking the rocket without any human intervention. Just got it pointed the right way in the first place, and then he turned it over to the software. But here's what that looked like on the replay. Replay on your left-hand side, of views from space on your right. It's playing because you can see a bird flying. That's my sanity check.
There we go. There's liftoff.
Look at this. So you see it identifies the rocket body and the engine flames. It's sending the software. There's actually a computer on site at KSC, like down in the building underneath the camera, and that computer is running this software. It's looking at the video. It's literally watching the video, and it's saying, well, that looks like a rocket body. Michael put little toothpicks in its eyes and forced it to watch 1,000 rocket launches, and now it knows what a rocket body looks like. And the engine flames as well. The question, why would you need to identify the engine flames separately from the rocket body? At night, it's a lot harder to see the rocket body. And the engine flame is the significant feature, I guess, that you can see. So that's why Michael's got it identifying separately both the rocket body and the engine flames. But as it pitches downrange, you can see it continues to identify the rocket body. Oh, it's like every now and then it's identifying. That's an artifact of the camera. That's the camera's fault, not the software's fault. We've got like extraneous engine flames in the upper right-hand corner.
Looks like rocket formation flying, if you ask the camera.
Rocket formation flying, nice. That's just like an internal reflection in the lens.
Oh, by the way, so you're telling me I shouldn't have unplugged that cable from the computer underneath the camera the other day?
Yeah, let's not do that, please.
Yeah, Michael said you have to frame it where
Yep.
the rocket body meets the flames.
Yep. And now the flames are sort of the majority. The rocket is hidden behind it. It's pitching downrange. The flames are coming back towards the camera, and the rocket body is hidden behind the exhaust. So now it's just going on engine flames. And note that the engine flames look totally different. It's spreading out. The plume expansion that we talk about, that plume is spreading out, and it doesn't look the same down low, but the software still knows that that's what rocket engine flames should look like. I want the software to say Falcon 9 exhaust expansion because it identifies that one little part in the middle.
It identifies which rocket it is. There you
Yeah,
go.
exactly. For the times when so many rockets are flying, the software has to identify what's launching today. It's like, I don't know, they didn't put out a schedule. What's that? Looks like a Falcon 9 going by. But it continues to go downrange. Space. I'm not sure what space means. Maybe he's identified space? That it's got a rocket body. Oh, well, we had the booster engine cutoff, and now it's identifying the rocket body instead of the flames. He'll tell us what space is.
It's a tiny object in space.
Space is any tiny object that's far away. It's in space. Nice. And so now it's still identified the tiny object. That's just cool. The booster's separated now. Look at that. It identified both of them. For just a second when the RCS thrusters were firing, it got one little... Look at that. It's so fast that when the thrusters fire, the software briefly identifies it because it says, hey, another little object I can see. Michael, this is cool.
Fascinating seeing the behind the scenes of it too.
Yeah. And then pretty soon here, it's going to lose the track because it's just too. Look at that. It's got the rocket bot. It's got the booster in the upper right-hand corner coming back, and it's got the second stage moving on, and then it looped back to the beginning again. Michael says it tracked it for about a minute after that, but it's basically just a dot going downrange. I guarantee you we are going to work on getting some bigger lenses in glass and stuff to throw at this thing, because this may be able to track the things all the way down. And of course, we want to have multiple installations of this. It's not just going to be the one. This is something that can be deployed to lots of uncrewed robotic trackers to track things. We're just going to be in the business of buying gaming PCs so that we can run this rocket identification software. Oh, how are we doing here, y'all? I see a couple super chats here, but I do not believe that we plan to stay live for the entire hour and a half all the way up to payload separation. Let me clean out these super chats and see if we have any other last late breaking questions. We've got Drunar Ceritis or Ceritis, not sure which one it is, but thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. We appreciate you. Justin Land says the second stage is leaking. Yes, but it's leaking on purpose. It's like a very controlled, intentional leak. They wanted it to do that. I don't know if you're talking about the... Go, Sawyer.
Just get some flex tape. It'll be fine.
Get some flex tape. Bam! Slap the flex tape on it.
Your rocket leaking. Boom. Flex tape.
Joe Ariasi Sr. Joe, I hope I got your last name correct there. That was my stab at it this early in the morning. Becoming a Red Team member, we appreciate you joining the membership program. And Jarig Elgvin. Let's see, this is a question about the latest Falcon Heavy a few days ago, wondering why the time slot was so accurate. GEO launchpad should be synchronous, so theoretically they could launch whenever, or does something else affect it? Who wants to run down on COLA and stuff like that? Thomas, you got it?
Yeah, so COLA windows can come into effect later, and the COLA assessments, so that's a collision on launch assessment. Make sure you're not going to hit anything already in orbit when you launch. Those assessments happen like at most a day before launch because orbits change slightly and things like that, so it's not worth doing it way ahead of time. The reason the launch window was what it was usually comes down to things like temperature requirements or power generation requirements. Like how much time does the satellite need to be spending in sunlight to gather electricity? So they'll plan the entire trajectory, and based on how quickly the rocket reaches GEO and things like that, you'll plan that when the satellite gets deployed, it's in sunlight, so it can immediately deploy solar panels and become power positive. That's usually a constraint they look at. During a long coast phase, like the Falcon Heavy mission, where you are also coasting all the way out for a direct GEO insertion, they also likely design the launch window and everything to optimize whatever thermal loads they want on the upper stage to prevent boil off as much as they can and things like that. Or in Falcon Heavy's case, oftentimes you actually want to prevent your RP1. That's where that gray stripe comes into play as well. But they plan the trajectory for the right thermal loads and things like that. So it usually comes down to rocket-specific parameters and payload-specific parameters and why it varies between different GEO missions. Because you are correct that the orbital mechanics works out that if you're going to GEO, no matter what time you launch, you'll still end up like at the same point at GEO altitude when you get there. It doesn't change based on the time of day. So it comes down to other things like sunlight and stuff like that. But that's also why you have a window, because you have a range of values that are acceptable for those kind of things.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent. Good question, Jared. That was a really good question. And Thomas, thank you for the explanation. Here's another super chat that came from PNWut. You're going to have to, you need to DM me and tell me how I'm supposed to pronounce your name. If you're in the Discord or wherever, just on Twitter, I don't care. Tell me how you want us to say your name. You've probably answered that before. $20 for the DOS Robot Army fuel. Nice. So electricity. We appreciate the support there,
photons.
PN. Yeah, the good old photons and electrons and stuff like that. Potential differences, etc., etc. And then this isn't even a super chat. It's not a question. It's more of a statement. This one's from James Atkinson. See a lot of great questions from James on a lot of our shows, like the museum shows and stuff we do. But it's got to be our fault that we don't have a space elevator yet, referring back to the Reddit meme, I think. DOS needs to get on it. James, why would I put myself out of a job? You think people are going to tune into a live stream to watch the space elevator ascend? No, we need rockets to launch because that's exciting and uses fire. Space elevator, our intro music would be like, I don't know, girl from Ipanema, like in elevator tones or something. I don't know how that would even
I was going
work.
to say, people who tune in for the tunes more than anything, get that
Yeah.
elevator music stream going.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, Mr. Beatniks is claiming responsibility for that meme.
Oh, claiming responsibility. That's brave. Hey, honestly, like I lurk around in the subreddits and stuff like that. I love seeing things like that. If it mentions NASA spaceflight, a lot of the times it's nice. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's not so nice, but I do troll around and I enjoy seeing things posted over there. So if you were the creator of that meme, which is clearly not based in fact and completely false, we appreciate you. It's another way to be a part of it. It's just another way to be a part of it. Oh,
I mean, we're always on
well,
time. Blame YouTube, right?
yeah, right. What? Wait, huh? Anyways, Thomas Sawyer, I think that we're now 30 minutes after the launch, 27 minutes and 50 seconds.
But who's counting? Oh, wait.
Well, SpaceX apparently is counting. I love the punctuation on the mission name there. They got some commas in there, hardly any hyphens at all.
Yeah, there's like 10 different names to like abbreviate this mission name, apparently.
It's not like they put out a style guide for how you should punctuate the name of the mission.
Yeah, I think that's now the fourth or fifth way I've seen this actually legitimately typed up between press releases, between SpaceX's announcements, articles, everything. It's been quite the wild ride while writing the article, trying to figure out how exactly do I write this? The name of the satellite.
At least it's not GPS-III-SV06 full thrust block 4 or something. Point 2.
Well, when we get to GPS-III-F, that'll be fun.
GPS-III-F.
Which is a thing. It's coming.
Wait, I thought S was, or
F. No, follow on.
Follow on. So SV was it space vehicle? Is that what you
right,
said?
Right, that is space vehicle. Yeah. So it is GPS, Global Positioning System, Block 3, Space Vehicle 6.
What? There's got to be like an FSV in there, like full space vehicle or something.
Fullest space vehicle.
Yeah, that's what the F will be standing for in the new ones, is fullest.
Flying space vehicle. We've been over this, and we do not need to fill time right now. Are you flying in space? Yes or no? There's no atmosphere. Find out next time on the next exciting episode of NASA Spaceflight Streams Something. It might be later today.
Right, and follow-up episode, do you preheat an oven?
Do you preheat an oven?
Oh, jeez.
Oh, my gosh. There may be streams happening from us later today, folks. Some things shaking at Starbase that we've been keeping track of. Road closures well, I hope the road closure hasn't been canceled while I'm doing this stream. Nope, nobody posted about it in my channel if they have. But we're watching what's going on over at Starbase because there may be some interesting testing today. So it might not be the last NASA spaceflight stream of the day, but thank you all for joining us for this one. Hey, again, real quick, Thomas, thanks for rolling out to the field this morning. We appreciate you being out there and answering our questions like you always do such a great job of.
Oh, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. It was a beautiful launch, and a big shout out to Chris Gebhardt for the tracking today, being out here with me, and then looking forward to the next one.
Excellent. It only shows your name on the screen if I'm not on the SpaceX feed. So there you go. Thomas Burkhart, news director for NASA Spaceflight, on Twitter at TGMetsFan. Hey, also, y'all, I neglected at the beginning of the stream, since he was being quiet as a mouse, which is not normal, Chris Gebhardt was out there running the crude tracking camera today. Not like we put it together with sticks and twigs and mud or anything like that. It means that there was a person operating it. Chris Gebhardt, thank you as well for rolling out, assistant managing editor for NASA Spaceflight. Back in the studios, plural, we had Mr. Sawyer. Sawyer, thank you so much for helping with the commentary today.
It's my pleasure. I always love a good SpaceX launch, and great to see this one on its way into orbit. No matter what name we give it, it has launched successfully.
Right. And it says contributor. We need to put some better text on there than contributor. You do a lot more than just contribute.
Hey, I'll take a title. I like fun titles. I guess Pun Master General is not an option.
No. Nope, not that. That's not an option. Sorry.
Darn.
I don't make the rules, but since I'm the one that could edit that, I kind of do, I guess.
Thanks, Das.
Finally, folks, my name is John Galloway for NASA Spaceflight. Sometimes people call me Das because that's an internet name I got stuck with. But we're going to go ahead and spool down our coverage here. We'll leave you with Space Coast Live. You can continue to watch views from the Space Coast over on Space Coast Live, our 24/7 stream of things that happen there at Port Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. Also, be on the lookout for a stream happening from Boca today. Don't know what they're going to do, but they might do it. We will cover it if they do. I'm going to roll the outro song because I like the outro song. I need to wake up and go get more coffee, and we will see you nerds later. Thanks for watching.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good. Toggling up. Roger, roll with Atlantis.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight outside SCE off. Say again, SCE off.
Yikes. You bet. Okay. We don't need any more of these.
I guess it's an intro song, but if you play it during the outro, does that make it an outro song as well? It sort of switch hits there. Anyways, y'all, Michael is awesome as well. Thank you. Good morning. Have a good day.